Hi everyone, welcome. It's another fans group here in March meeting. This is our fourth meetup with this group. It looks like a lot of you are out enjoying the nice weather this evening. So to be mindful of time, because we are going to record this and share it out with the entire fans group later on, I want to go ahead and get things started. If people join in, we'll be happy to bring them up to speed, but I don't want to take up any more time than what we have. I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you Jan Ott. Am I saying
Oh,
that? He is joining us from the Hartford Funds Group. They represent the Smart 529 program out of the State Treasurer's Office. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jan and let him share some information with you about Smart 529 and what that is and why you should be interested in it for your students.
thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. For those of you who may not be familiar with 529s at all, the 529 is the number of the legislation that was given to creating college savings plans, which have since grown to be used for many more things than just college, but they were created at the federal level about 25 years ago, and then the state of West Virginia created Smart 529 in 2002. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year. And essentially, it's designed as a way for people to set aside money into an investment vehicle that will hopefully grow over the course of time for them to be able to use those funds to help pay for their child or grandchild or themselves or whomever they're saving for their future education. As I said, when they first started, they were called college savings plans because that's what they were designed specifically for. Over the years, through various types of legislation, the uses of 529s have broadened greatly. Certainly can still use it for college, obviously, but you can also use it for things like vocational school, technical school, professional training. You can use it to get things like a CDL license. You can use it to get things like a welding certification. Any sort of higher education beyond high school that requires some form of tuition or fee or payment, you can use the money that you put into a Smart 529 plan to help pay for. And it's not just for the tuition and fees associated with those things. You can also use 529 funds for things like room and board, for books, for supplies. We used ours to buy my daughter a laptop. So essentially anything that the institution requires you to have to spend money on, you can use your 529 funds for. It's important to note specifically for room and board, that's not just for on-campus housing. You can actually use the 529 funds for off-campus housing. So say, for example, you have a child that wants to go to Marshall, but they don't want to live on campus. They want to get an apartment with their friends. You can actually use the money in a Smart 529 fund up to whatever the school charges for room and board. You can use that money for groceries, for supplies, for rent, anything associated with room and board, even off campus. You can use 529 funds up to whatever the school charges for the same thing for on campus. So like, for example, if you need Wi-Fi and your apartment charges a fee for the Wi-Fi, you can use your 529 funds to pay for that because you're using it to help further your education. So really the uses have broadened dramatically over the course of time. And the way the 529 funds work, pardon me, you essentially, the easiest way I tell people to think about it is what 401k is to retirement, 529 is to education savings. You put the money in, you hope that it builds over the course of time, and then when the time comes, you withdraw that money and use it for educational purposes. So long as you're using it for education, there's no taxes, no penalties, no anything associated with fees for that money. It's 100% yours to use, free of any taxes or any federal implications. Having said that, of course, if you take the money out and don't use it for education, then there are taxes and penalties. But most people, more than 99% of the people who open these accounts, end up using them for educational purposes anyway. One of the best benefits, though, for every West Virginia resident is that if you are a West Virginia resident and you put money into a Smart 529 account, you get a dollar for dollar deduction to take off of your state taxable income. So in other words, if you make $35,000 a year and that year you put $5,000 into your 529 account, you're only taxed at $30,000 of income. So it can be a huge difference in the amount of taxes that you have to pay to the state of West Virginia. There's no minimum amount to start an account. You can open an account for $1. There's no minimum monthly contribution. You don't even have to make a monthly contribution if you don't want to. Now, obviously, the more you put in, the greater the chances are for it to grow and be worth more over time. But I always tell people, since there is no minimum, just open the account. Just go online, smart529.com, click on the green open account button, fill out all the information and open the account and just put $1 in, or $5 or $10 or whatever you feel like you can start with. Because if you wait until you quote unquote have enough to open it, you'll never open it. But if you put that money in small increments, it can really add up over time. Even if you're just putting in, say, $5 at birthdays or $20 at Christmas, it also makes for a nice thing to be able to tell family and friends, hey, I've opened this college savings account for my child, or this educational savings account for my child, and they don't need another toy, they don't need another video game. Could you give a $20 gift card to their Smart 529 account? And it's super easy for them to do as well. They go to smart529.com and click on gifting. They can buy a gift card that they put your child or grandchild's information in. It can only be used by that child or grandchild, so it can't go to anyone else, and it can only be used at smart529.com. It's not like the money could be spent anywhere else. So a lot of different ways for people to be able to both contribute to it and to be able to use it. It's important to know it is not just for use within the state of West Virginia. Even though it is called West Virginia's Smart 529 plan, you can use Smart 529 at any institution around the country, more than 400 international institutions. So if your child, wants to go to school in West Virginia, obviously we want to try and keep our best and brightest here. But if they say they want to go to Virginia or New York or California, wherever, you can use the Smart 529 funds to pay for whatever fees they might have in another state or in another country. Another important thing to note is that you, as a West Virginia resident, can open the account, get those tax benefits and whatnot. But if the person you want to open it for, say a grandchild, lives in another state, you can still open the account for them. In order to open a West Virginia Smart 529, one of two things has to exist. Either the account opener or the beneficiary has to live within the state of West Virginia. So, if grandparents live in Florida but the grandchild and the parents live here, and you'd love for grandma and grandpa to open an account for them, they can do that. They can open an account for a West Virginia Smart 529 account for that grandchild that lives here in the state of West Virginia. So I think I've hit most of the highlights, but I'm happy to stop here for just a second to see if there's any questions. If not, I can talk a little bit more about some of the other benefits. Anybody have any questions about some of the stuff I've gone over so far?
I had two quick ones, Jan, that
Yes, sir.
popped up for me, and it was, can they set up for it to be direct deposited out of their pay?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful feature for folks to be able to use. And of course, it depends, if the company that you work for allows you to do that sort of thing, then you can have it taken directly out of your paycheck. And it is a direct ACH deduction from the paycheck to the 529 account. So it's not like whoever you work for is going to get a bill every month for all the 529 account holders like they might do for insurance or other purposes. But you can also just have it come directly out of a checking account, savings account, whatever method of contribution is easiest for you. But we have a lot of companies that do offer 529 as a benefit to their employees, and it doesn't cost the company anything. It's just a service that they provide. So if you do work for state of West Virginia, obviously, if you work in the state of Virginia, they do, and several other private companies do as well. Good question.
And then what if residency status would happen to change? So if the beneficiary lived here in West Virginia and then moved out of state?
Sure. So once the account is opened, it's yours for the duration, no matter where you might live. Now, obviously, if you move to another state, you won't get the state tax benefit of being a West Virginia state resident and taxpayer anymore. And you do also have the option of transferring those funds to your new state's 529 without any fees or penalties or anything. All states are like that. Every state's 529 allows transfer from another state's 529 without any sort of penalty. So the reverse applies. If you open an account when you live in Virginia and you move to West Virginia and you want to receive the tax benefits here, you can do that. But a lot of people do keep their 529 accounts from wherever they're from, no matter where they move, because they're happy with the growth, they're happy with the investments, they're happy with how it's doing, and they don't want to fiddle with the changes. And just so everyone knows that, you can go to, there's an independent website, savingforcollege.com. They rank all of the 529 plans around the country based on a lot of factors, growth, reliability, stability, all those things. For the last 10 years, West Virginia's Smart 529 has ranked in the top 5 in the entire country. And for several of those years, we were the first. So you can feel comfortable knowing that if you invest in the Smart 529, of course, I do have to offer this disclaimer: past performance is no indicator of future success. It's an investment. So like any investment, you can lose money in this or any other 529 plan. Now, there are a lot of different investment options, which is one of the reasons I'm really thankful that you had me here, because that is when people go online to open the account, when they get to the investment options, that's where a lot of people freeze up and they end up not opening the account. So I want to make sure that everyone understands how simple that can be. It's not a difficult process. If you go onto the account or to smart529.com to open the account, you go through the whole enrollment process. The basic things that you're going to need are name, address, social security number for both yourself and the beneficiary. Put all that information in. Then you'll get to the spot that says, how do you want to invest your funds? The first one at the top is the age-based portfolio. This is a plan that is going to be more aggressive in its investment strategy when a child is young, 0, 1, 2, 3, when they're very young, it's going to be very aggressive because you have more time to take those risks in investing with the hope of a greater reward. Then as the child gets older, it moves to a more and more conservative plan so that by the time they're 18, it's almost exclusively in what we call stable value. So if you decide to put the money in that one, it's very easy because it's just set it and forget it. Hartford Funds manages all of that for you. You don't have to make the changes every year when your child turns to a new age. They take care of that for you. It's an actively managed portfolio, so they're always trying to make sure that it gets the best return on your investment. No broker fees or anything of that nature, so whatever you put in, you're putting in to invest in the plan. And then when they turn 18, of course, that, they don't have to use it when they're 18. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that as well. There's no time limit on this. It's just 18 is when we expect most people will use it. So there's no age parameters beyond 18, but that doesn't mean that, you can't use it when you're 25, 30, whenever. So probably 80 to 85% of the accounts we open, people put in that age-based portfolio. I know some of the folks on this call might have kids that are older. I still feel like depending on how much you want to put in and how long you want to invest for, the age-based portfolio is a great option. I will say that, we did it for our daughter. We opened an account when she was 8, and she graduated college last May. She went to an out-of-state school. She's a smart kid. She got some good scholarships, but with her scholarships and her 529, her college was paid for. And so I'm a big believer from a personal perspective of, what all you can do with a 529. And again, not just college, we need more people in the trades in the state of West Virginia. We need more people who are actively involved in that work. And it can be not only a very rewarding work, but also, financially fruitful and less expensive than your, say, longer college careers. You can use your 529 funds for that. And we have a lot of people who do. A lot of our account holders have gone to places like New River Community and Technical College, to what's that one called in Charleston? Bridgewater? Is that what? Yeah. So a lot, we get a lot of people going to those schools.
Bridge Valley. Yep.
Yeah, Bridge Valley. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, next question I would have, and I think probably several of our parents are going to have similar questions, is you mentioned having multiple children or having younger children. I have 2 young children.
Right.
You would certainly start one for each, and then
Correct.
in the event that one didn't need to use as much, can you transfer funds between the 2? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, it is highly recommended that you open an account for each individual child, because you do have to name a specific beneficiary. You have to give the name, date of birth, social security number. So while you could open it in just one child's name, I always recommend, open one for each, again, with just $1. But so let's say that the oldest child ends up getting a full scholarship, or they join the military, or they just simply don't need all of the money that's in their 529 account. You have options when it comes to any 529 account. You can change the beneficiary, and the beneficiary change can happen to be anybody in the family. So family doesn't just mean like the nuclear family in the household. You certainly can change it to a sibling or whatever, but you can also change the beneficiary to yourself. You can change it to a grandparent, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew. Anything up to first cousin is a qualified change in beneficiary to still be within the family without any tax or penalties. So you can change the beneficiary. You also can just leave it in there. If you have a child that is not sure what they want to do, maybe they want to go to a traditional college for a year, and then they decide they want to go to vocational school, or maybe they, need to take a year to go hiking in Europe, whatever it might be, you can just leave it in there and let it continue to grow. And hopefully by the time that they are ready, then you'll have even more funds to be used for them. But at the end of the day, if you put money in there and you don't need all of it, it is your money. It is your account. So you can withdraw the funds. Now, obviously, just like if you took money out of a retirement account and used it for, like, to buy a car, you would pay taxes and penalties on that. With a 529 account, If you take the money out and you don't use it for educational purposes, you get your principal back, the money that you put in, you get back, but then you pay taxes and penalties on the growth only. So let's say you open an account for a child when they were born, and over the course of the next 18 years, you put $10,000 in there and it grew to 40,000, which is very possible. And they don't need it. You take the money out, you get your 10,000 back. That's the money that you put in, so you get that back, and then you pay taxes and penalties on that 30,000. So it's a 10% federal income tax penalty. So in that example, it would be 3,000, and then you pay taxes on the growth. So you still get a return on your investment, just not as much, obviously, as if it were used entirely for education. If you use it for educational purposes, no taxes, no penalties, 100% yours to use. It's a good question. So I should mention a couple more about the investment options. Yes, the age base is the most popular. It's the one that most people do, but you do have the option of designing your own portfolio. Maybe you know more about investing and you want to pick a plan that's more specific to your choices, or maybe you have a child that's older. You only have, say, 4 years to save, and you want to try and be as aggressive as you possibly can be in that time. You can open one of the static portfolios. So when you're online, you'll see things like aggressive growth or growth. You may be the type of person that I don't want to roll the dice at all. Whatever I put in, I want to make sure I get back. We have a thing on there called stable value fund. The name should indicate it's stable. If you put $1,000 in there and the stock market crashed, you still have $1,000. It's not going to grow obviously as much as some of the other plans do, but it still has growth opportunities. So when you look on there, as you see those different options, if you're unsure, I think most people would likely choose the age-based unless their child, say, is 18. But if you get on there and you have questions or are confused, that's my job. I'm happy to answer those questions. So please feel free to share my email address with everybody who attends the call, or with anybody who watches this in the recording. I'm more than happy to field any questions about that. I'm mostly concerned about getting as many West Virginians as possible participating in 529. So don't hesitate to ask me anything about it. It's my job. Any other questions?
Actually, Jude, just from our office standpoint, we do several outreach events throughout the year, especially at our Gear Up schools, where we hand out different materials on financial aid. We actually don't have anything to hand out on the 529, and if you have anything that you have digitally, if you could send it to myself or JR, I will,
absolutely,
and we can just print it out in our office to give at those events.
I'm more than happy to do that. And please also know I am available to speak at those events. There's obviously no charge for any of that kind of stuff. My role is strictly to travel the state of West Virginia, virtually and in person, to give these kinds of presentations to make sure that most folks know about. So yes, I'm more than happy to both send you some some electronic versions of those, and also bring handouts if you'd ever like me to. So I think I have hit all the highlights about the 529. Invariably, when I get rambling on about it, I might forget one thing or another, but I think I've hit most of the things. If again, if you don't have any questions, I'm happy to just talk some more about it. But if you do have questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer anything that I can. But also know what are we at, 20 minutes now? So.
No, I think we're good, unless other folks have questions on the call.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share the Smart 529 message again, www.smart529.com. A lot of information on there, reiterating some of the things that I've said and maybe covering some other things that I forget. Oh, one thing I do want to make sure I don't forget. Within 529, we have this program called Bright Babies, where if you open an account for a child before they turn 1, you get a free $100 deposited into the account, which, it's an incentive to get people starting to save as early as possible. That's wonderful, but it also applies to adopted kids. So if you know anyone who has adopted a child or is planning on adopting a child, if you open an account within the first year after adoption, regardless of the child's age, adopt a 10-year-old within the first year after their adoption date, if you open an account, you also get a free $100 that way as well. So it's a great program that, helps people get those accounts rolling. And again, just putting a little bit in every month can really make a difference over the course of time. And I think that's all.
All right, Jan, thank you so much. We really
Thank you
appreciate
so
the
much.
information. It was wonderful. I think I learned a lot, so I'm I'm looking forward to getting my two daughters' account set up, and
Excellent.
hopefully several of our parents will hear the information and want to share it with other parents and families
Oh,
that need the information as well. So,
absolutely.
all right. Well, Jan, thank you so much, and
Thank you, guys.
we'll catch up with you soon for sure.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And Misty, we see you're the only one still on the call. We're happy to sit and chat, but I don't want to take up any more of your time than what is absolutely necessary. So unless you want to discuss some things Gear Up related, or college planning, career planning, financial aid planning, we're happy to stick around and have a chat with you. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and end this one a little early this evening.
Okay, I don't have any questions at this
All right.
time.
Was that informational for you?
Yes, it was. I didn't know a lot about the 529.
Great. Well, I'll be sure to share out their virtual kind of flyer in the next email that I share out with this group. And if anyone does have any questions, as Jan said, you can feel free to, hop on the Smart 529 website. I dropped it in the chat. I also dropped his email in the chat. You can certainly email directly to him, or you can always reach out to us in the Gear Up offices, and we'll be happy to help answer any questions or facilitate, get you in communication with the folks that know at the treasurer's office. So, well, thank you all for your attention this evening, and we'll look forward to our chat again. Our next meeting will be May 8th, so a little over a month away. It'll be our last one of the year, and hopefully we'll have a few more family members join that one. There are some discussions I would like to have going into the summer, just so we can start to wrap our minds around perhaps where we can grow this group and go with it next year, as well as an opportunity this summer to, in conjunction with Gear Up U, for those who have students that are coming to the camp, to sit down and facilitate a conversation as a group to discuss kind of where we can help fill some voids with our Gear Up messaging and outreach that you may be experiencing or may have. We want to make sure that we're providing the best support possible for you and your students throughout this journey. And it would be nice to sit down in person and have a conversation. So we're going to try to facilitate something like that in conjunction with Gear Up U this summer, which is June 21st to the 24th on the campus of Marshall University. Likely it will be, perhaps for an hour, maybe two at the most, before the opening ceremony of that summer camp. So I'll be certain to share more details with you as that becomes available about that opportunity. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.